So we were progressing to Miss Nkechi Obi. Miss Nkechi Obi, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so.
I've been here from the onset.
Amazing, amazing, and you
I've
look
heard
good too.
everybody. Yeah, I heard everybody speak. Yes,
Awesome,
it's a
awesome.
pleasure to be here.
And we are very, very, very elated to have you. Welcome, ma'am. And thank you, and well done for what you're doing. The work you're doing, we really it's a very peculiar space. I mean, the sports. So, it's a different space entirely. Well done, ma'am. Okay, so all right. So Miss Nkechi Obi is the convener, Sports Africa Investment Summit, and our discussion area with you has to do with the sports pathway that can restore hope for post-high school students. So like I said, this is a very key area. So how can the sports industry collaborate with educational institutions to provide opportunities for young high school graduates, especially now that we're looking at what we can do, where we have, 16 versus 18, the pathway, as we're trying to create this pathway, what can we do? This gap here that we're looked at, that we have in our hands, how can we use them positively in our country, Nigeria? So,
yes, thank you very much. I listened to everybody speaking, and they spoke about policies, they spoke about skill acquisitions, spoke about particularly the creative industry. So we had the fashion, we had agri, we had all kinds of skills. And I never heard anybody say anything about sport.
That was why I say the special area.
And for me, it was a little sad. In this, it was a little sad because it meant that the values of sport, that when you imbibe them in school, they serve you throughout your life. It means that in schools today, we are not doing enough sport or doing any at all. Therefore, we are not pushing those values. And it's because we are not pushing, and I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility. When you meet somebody who has played sport from school, right, their attitude to life is totally different. They learn, because sport teaches you how to learn to lose gracefully. It teaches you teamwork.
Absolutely.
So you learn to work with people. It teaches you perseverance and resilience, because without it, you cannot climb, you cannot hone your skills, you can't play in the clubs, you can't. It teaches you so many things. I could reel out. It teaches you inclusivity. You must depend on your team members. If it's a team sport, without your team members, you are not going to achieve anything. And even if it's a solo sport, without your coaches, your team that caters to your training, you wouldn't achieve anything. So I find it a little bit odd that wasn't an area that anybody looked at. But then, of course, I'm now here to let you know that you mentioned something about gap years. And honestly, I was so glad someone else mentioned it. I like to think of this. I'm one of those who believes that no child should go to university at 16. My daughter finished secondary school at 16, and I said she wasn't going anywhere except maybe to learn a trade, some kind of trade. So I put her into Yaba College of Tech for 2 years. She's very artistic, so I said, go. She has started running her own fashion label at 13. So I said, okay, go learn, spend 2 years learning. And she did the ND program. And it's only after that she went off to school, university and she's reading integrated rural arts and industry now. But she was more mature. She became streetwise. She learned to live with people. Therefore, going away out of the country was no longer a problem. So I'm sorry about this, but I'm a total, what's the word I will use now? I'm totally in sync with the fact that you should go to school at 18. Now, what do we do between 16 and 18? So I'm also an adherent of the gap year system. Incidentally, my daughter finished at 15. She had a gap year. She had 1 year of just going and doing the things in the field of work she wanted to be in, her interests. So art, podcasts, and this, go to work as intern here or there. So she's experienced all of those things. I also had 1 year before I entered university, because I at that time, we were the first set of JAM. At that time, I did A-levels, and we were the first set of JAM direct entry, and I wanted to go to IFE, but I wanted to study pharmacy, but I didn't get the cutoff marks for pharmacy in IFE, and I wanted to change to Unilag. At that time, they didn't allow you to change, so I had to spend 1 year, and I'm eternally grateful for that 1 year. Every day, I'm grateful I had that 1 year, because by the time I got into university, I was working as an account officer with a broadcast station, and I met the kind of people I met in the nature of my work was such that by the time I got into university, I even felt the university students were a bit immature for the experience that I had. So I see that gap year from the point of view of sports. And let me give you one very cogent statistic that might make it important for us to look at sports as a solution. So here's the thing. We have, when we did our research with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, where we were working on the sports policy, we determined that if you made it compulsory for any school to actually, that had about 400 students, to actually engage the services of a games master, to take the students, first and foremost, you must have compulsory sports. Then you must have a games master to take the sports, and not just maybe the physics teacher knows how to run a bit, so you tell him to double. A proper games master. You would need in the neighborhood of about 100,000 games masters or mistresses. We have less than 10,000. So there's a 90,000. There's a 90,000 gap waiting to be filled, which very easily you could do with those 2 years, with young people who have a lot of energy, who've just come out, and run a 1 year games master games, working with the National Institute of Sports to develop a program that takes them into schools to now actually engage in quote unquote playing. A few countries do military service. People like South Korea, Switzerland do 2 years military service. But they exempt sports people. They exempt sports people from the military service. Roger Federer got a 2-year exemption. And when he started making money because he turned pro, he paid. He actually paid some money to the Swiss government in lieu of not doing that service, because he became a professional. Right? South Korea has the same thing. So this Tottenham player, son, doesn't go for military service. Instead, he does in lieu military service, because it is taken that his sports career. So these are the advantages that sports has. It is taken that the values sports teaches you is akin to the values that your military service will teach you. So we need to begin to look at sports differently in this country. We need to look at it as a solution to a problem or quote unquote, I don't think it's a problem, but a problem we now have. We need to have I listened to Dr. Dairu Sadi, who said, look, implementation is they don't talk to all the stakeholders before they come up with something. I think it is the stakeholders that should, make themselves front and center. Yes, Mrs. Angela Ajala said they try to tell them that can you look at this curriculum? Everybody kind of shoved them out of the room. But I will tell you a story about the pension fund reform. President Obasanjo was totally against it. In fact, I don't want to tell you how
we don't have the time for.
No, it's just that I listen to everyone, so you need to give us time to also have.
I wish we had.
Yes, yeah. I was going to tell you about stakeholder engagement. I didn't want to talk about the problems we had. When I hear that the ministry or anything said we don't want to hear, you have to be in their faces. Obasanjo did not want pension reform. He didn't want it. He chased us out of the room, but we just bided our time, waited about a year or so, and represented with a stronger group of people. Today, look at the pension. We went from 2 trillion to pension is now nearly 20 trillion. So you can't afford to say they didn't allow you to say sports reform. I know the problem we went through. They didn't want us in the room, but you've got to find a way to make sure everybody is facing the same direction. Lastly, I want to say something. The last thing I will say here is the fact that, there's a lot of, we've done the policy. Where is the implementation? We die on the altar of the implementation. Can we find a way to find somebody or a group of people who are going to drive the implementation? If you finish the policy, leave it for government, nothing will happen. And that was what brought Sport Nigeria, the recognition that no policy we were doing with government was actually going to work. So the private sector came together and set up Sport Nigeria that I run today. And we are now ensuring we hold everybody's feet to the fire to move and implement the elements of that policy. Who is holding the education ministry's feet to the fire is what we should be asking. And why are they not here today to hear all of these things?
I'm sure that we would make sure that this is publicized so that they would hear, right? So, and
no, it's not enough to publicize. Somebody must go beyond publicity.
I understand you, Ms. I understand. Thank you very much, Ms.
Truth prevails, our land where there's hope for all.